So in this video, we're going to work on some graphic symbols. So I'm going to go to the instruction sheet and show you the first one that we're going to make. So I'm going to draw the north arrow that you see on this page. However, I'd like for you to go and search for a north arrow yourselves and choose one to draw. A couple things to keep in mind. You want to keep it relatively simple. If it gets too detailed, it can be even more difficult to read. So find something relatively simple. And the other thing to keep in mind is that we want to keep it approximately 1 inch across. It shouldn't really be any bigger than that. So I'm going to start by drawing a circle that it has a diameter of 1 inch and a radius of 1/2 inch. I'm going to set my layer to 0, and I'll draw this figure that you see right here. Okay, so here we are in the AutoCAD file. And one thing I want to note, when we draw the these type of symbols, typically you don't want to do them in model space, especially when you're working in an architectural plan. And the reason for that is that if I were to draw a circle that was 0.5 inches in diameter, look how small it is. So generally speaking, if I'm already in a file and I'm making one of these kind of symbols, I want to go to one of the layout views and kind of build it off on the side here or down below. Okay. So I'll build it here so that you can kind of see it with the white background. So generally speaking, you want to make graphic symbols on layer 0. And that gives you a lot more flexibility because you can bring it into a drawing and put it on any number of layers. So I'm going to change my current layer to layer 0, and I will start drawing this circle. I'll just pick a point here. 0.5 is going to be my radius. I've got the quadrant tool on, so it's snapping to those quadrant points. And I'm then going to create some offsets so I can snap to. So I'll offset this line 0.25. Now your graphic symbols are going to be different than this one, so it doesn't really matter what I draw here. It's really just to illustrate the process. So here we go. Brace, brace, brace. Basically, that's my north arrow. And just a suggestion, when it comes to drawing, when it comes to north arrows, generally speaking, north is up on a plan. If you think about anytime you've ever seen a map of the globe, north is always up. Once in a while, you see one that's upside down, but generally speaking, north is up. And it just is helpful to keep that orientation because it makes it easier for somebody who is trying to get oriented with your map or your plan. Now, I actually think that this north arrow is maybe a little bit too big relative to the scale of my drawing. So I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to type in scale, and I'll pick it. I'll use the center of the circle as a reference point, and I'll just drop it down to 0.75. Okay, this is going to be my north arrow. All right, and then the process is the same as you've done previously. Type in B for block. I'm going to call this one north arrow, and then I'll include my initials in here. Pick point, center, that will be the insertion point. Select all the objects and click on annotated. Now, some blocks, particularly graphic symbols, want to be annotative so that the scale can adjust to the scale of the drawing. In this case, we're going to still make it annotative, even though I'm going to insert it into the layout view where I am right now. So I'll just say, okay, if I ever wanted to reuse this graphic symbol in another drawing, it would be set to annotative, so I could insert it in layout view or in model space. But generally speaking, a north arrow is only shown on a floor plan or site plan. You never show a north arrow on an elevation or section. Perhaps look for a nice place to orient this particular block, and let's see here, I'll move it slightly down 0.5. You know, typically they tend to be in the lower right-hand side of a plan. And I'm also going to, now that I've made it on layer 0, I can move it to any layer. I'm going to put it on my GNO layer. Now it'll still be black, but if I click on it, it should tell me that it's on GNO. So I'll just show you what would happen if I insert it at different scales in the model space. Okay, if I type an I for insert, and it'll start loading these blocks that I have in here already. Should have north arrow, there's north arrow right there. Okay, my scale is set to 1/8 of an inch. If I drag this, and I'll just put it in the middle of the plan, which is something you wouldn't do. I'm going to place it there, and I'm going to go back to layout view. And because I've inserted it at the same scale, 1/8 of an inch is my model view scale. My viewport scale is also 1/8 inch. This graphic symbol should be the same size as the one that's located in the layout view. So let's go check. Yes, so see, it's the same size, right? Now, just for the sake of illustration, what happens if I change the scale to 1/4 of an inch, and then I insert the block? You'll notice it's half the size. So the bigger the scale, the smaller the annotative scale of the graphics is. And when I go to the floor plan, it doesn't show. And the reason is because I've set this viewport to 1/8 inch equals a foot. If I wanted to see it appear, I'd have to change my graphic scale to 1/4 of an inch and pan over there it is. And the 1/8 inch scale one has disappeared. But look how the size of it is the same as the one in layout view. Okay, so I'll undo that because we are going to be working at 1/8 inch. And I'll go back to my model and I'll erase these two. The next block I'm going to make is a room tag. And it's basically going to look something like what we see right here, except without the X across it. And it'll just tell you, oh, is this a bathroom? Is this a living room, kitchen, etc. Okay. The same as we did with the north arrow, we're going to make this block in layout view, again, because it's drawn at the size you want it to be on the printed page. So if we do it in the floor plan, it's going to be teeny tiny, so it's kind of easier to construct it in the layout view. You could do it in the layout view, it's just a little bit more difficult to sort of work. So I'm back in the AutoCAD file, and now I'm going to go to my layout view. And Control Z, I'm in that viewport. I'm going to exit the viewport. And I'll just build this particular tag down here. It's actually going to be inserted in the model space this time. I'm going to start, okay, first of all, make sure your layer set to 0. I'm going to make a rectangle that is 1.5 by 3/16. Okay, so in other words, 1.5 inches long, 3/16 of an inch high. And I'm going to draw an X across it that I will eventually erase. Now we're going to put a string of text here, but this is different than like the text that you use for your title block. We're going to actually put in a different type of text called an attribute. And the thing about an attribute that's really nice is that when you insert it, you can double click on the block and it allows you to change the text that's inside, but it keeps the relationship of the text the same. So what I need to do is go to the instructions, and you'll see that there is a box here that has some information in it. What we're doing is we're creating an attribute. This is the attribute definition box. So what I would do is type in ATTDEF, and then when that box appears, I would input these parameters. The tag will be room, the prompt will be room name, the default's going to be room X, and then I'll center justify it, and I'll assign the text style that I had already created. The text height will be 1/8 of an inch. So back in AutoCAD, I'm going to type in ATTDEF, and there's the window. Okay, so my tags are going to be room. This is what I'm going to see before I make the block. Room name. This is going to be what I see when I want to change the text in the block. So for example, if I wanted it to be room, or I wanted it to be living room, it would ask me room name. And the default is going to be room X. So when I insert the blocks, and if I didn't change the based on the prompt, it would insert a room tag that says in it room X. Justification, middle center, because I want it to be exactly centered in my rectangle. And then I'm going to use this style, and my height, I'm going to make it 1/8 of an inch, which is the same thing as 0.125. And I'll say okay. Right, and then I'll go ahead and click where those two lines intersect. Okay, so this is the tag because it hasn't been made into a block yet. I'm going to click on this and this. You know what? I'm going to leave them because I'm going to use the intersection of those two lines as my insertion point, but I won't include them in the block. Okay, so I'm going to type in B for block. And I'm going to call it room label. Take out the spaces there. Room label CM. My initials. Pick point will be the midpoint of those two lines. Select objects. And I just want to choose the text and the rectangle and press enter. And I want this definitely to be annotative, so it will adjust to the scale of my model space. And I'm going to say okay. All right, now here's the prompt. So I've just defined the block, and now it's asking me, do I want to change the name of the block? I could here. I could just call this, let's say, bathroom, and say okay. Right? But these are going to go in the plan. So I'm going to erase this one, and I'm going to go back to model space. And then I'm going to start inserting these. But let's change the layer to G-Ano. You know, maybe it would have been better to make this color something other than white so that we're sure when we insert them that they're on the right layer. But if I were going to change it, probably that magenta color would be good, but we don't want to also confuse it with the dimension style. So I'll go ahead and insert room label, and I can just drag it over here. Okay, now one thing I forgot to do was I had previously changed my scale to 1/4 of an inch. I need to change it back to 1/8. And now I'm going to reinsert that. So it comes in at the scale of the drawing. It's going to be bigger. So this one will be kitchen. You can do like all caps, you could do caps and lowercase, but just be consistent. Now, if it doesn't fit in the room, what you need to do is find a way to create a kind of line and dot that will identify the room. So it can get a little crowded here. And so you'll have to kind of work with this. Our goal is to not have lines on top of lines. So I'm going to move that over, and then I'm going to make a line that comes down here. And I'm going to place something called a donut, D-O-N-U-T, right? How big do I want my donut to be? This is the inside diameter. I want it to be just a dot. So I don't really want a donut. So I'm going to type in 0 for my interior dimension. And maybe I want it to be about the thickness of the wall here. which is 5 inches. So I could put for my diameter, let's say 5. And there we go. All right, now these are all on the G-ano layer. So if I was ever to turn that off, it wouldn't be a problem. The other ones, I can just make a copy of these. This is going to be my dining room. Now, if I really want to be precise about this, I can center it in the room. I'll leave it as kitchen and I'll come back around and change all the text to be the correct room name. This will be my living room. This will be my bedroom. And that bathroom, I'm gonna have to squeeze that into the hallway. This is not enough room. And that should do it. So I'll do another line. Maybe I'll bring my line from the nearest point here so it won't be exactly centered on my tag. And then I'll make a copy of my little donut there. Here, oops. Let's move that from center to end point. And then we can go around and change the text. Double click on them to change them. First, we got to make sure you enter or say okay after you type in. This is going to be bedroom. Living room. Maybe I could have made my rectangle a little bit less wide. Okay, right now when I go to my layout view, all of them should appear because the annotative scale of the viewport is set to 1/8, and the scale that I inserted them was also at 1/8. We have one more graphic symbol to make, and it is for this detail title. Now this one will actually have 3 different attributes. So we'll use that same ATT-DEF tool to create these 3. All right, we're going to start with making a circle that's 3/4 of an inch in diameter, and then we'll extend a line that's 6 inches. Right, the block that we make may look a little bit different than what you see, but it will be close to looking like this. All right, so let's start with that. So I'm back in the layout view, and again, I'm going to change my layer to layer 0, and I will start to construct this block. So I'll make a circle. Its diameter is going to be 3/4. So for the radius, I'll put 3/8. You could put 3/8 or 0.375. And then I'm going to draw a line that is from the quadrant over 6 inches. Okay. Now we will add the attributes. So the first attribute that I'm going to add is the one that goes in the center of the circle. Just to keep it consistent with the instructions, maybe it's better for me to work with attribute number 1, which is actually the detail title. So tag is detail. So you want to use this same formatting or entry of data here. Tag, prompt, default, justification, text style, text height. So in this case, tag is detail, the prompt is detail title, the default is detail title. That's kind of confusing. Let's call it detail X. The text is 1/4 of an inch high. The justification is middle left. So here I am back in the CAD file. I'm going to type in ATTDEF. My tag is going to be detail. Prompt will be detail title. Default will be detail X. Justification, middle left. Same style. And this one will be slightly bigger than what I have for my room tags. I'm going to say OK. All right, now I'm going to temporarily place it right here. But then I'm going to move it up. Let's try 0.125. You don't want it to sit right on the line, so let's move it up another 1/16 of an inch and maybe over 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so you can create guidelines for yourself if that's helpful. So if I was going to offset the line, maybe I would offset 3/16 of an inch so that I could place that. But you can just move it in these increments as well. So that's the first attribute. The second attribute is going to be the scale. The tag will be scale, the prompt is scale, and the default in this case will be 1 inch equals 1 foot. 3/16 of an inch high will be the height, and justification is middle left like I had with the one above. So ATTDEF, tag, scale, prompt will also be scale. And the default is going to be 1 inch equals a foot. Justification, let's make that middle left. And this will be not quite as tall. It will be 3/16. I'm going to use my same style. Oops. And 1/16. And I'll place it, I'll go with the same process. I'll place it here. I'll move it down. Let's see here. These dimensions get to be a little bit more challenging. Let's say I move it. So half of 3/16 is 3/32. And then I'll move it down 1/32. No, let's move it down. So it's the same as the top. Let's move it down 1/16. And we'll move it to the right 1/16. Again, you can make guidelines, but the goal would be to kind of get some alignment here, get an equal spacing between the line and the text. Okay. The last one we're going to make is the mark that goes, the detail number that goes in this circle. This one is going to be detail number. The tag is going to be X. The prompt is detail number. The default is X. Okay, this one will be 1/4 of an inch high, and the justification will be middle center. Okay, ATTDEF. Okay, our tag is going to be X. The prompt is going to be detail number. Default will also be X, and justification, middle center. Height of this one will be 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and I want to snap to the center. So look for that green circle. Right. Now we're ready to make this into a block. All right, B for block. We're going to call this detail title. My initials in there, pick point. Now the pick point, it says in the instructions, a logical spot. Perhaps it's the center of the circle, perhaps it's the quadrant on this side, maybe it's the quadrant on this side. You have a few options for doing that. I'm going to make mine the quadrant on this side, and then I'm going to go ahead and pick everything here. I'll just make a crossing and press enter. Again, check annotative and say okay. All right, now there are the 3 attributes. The detail number, in this case, there's only one detail on this sheet, so this is going to be detail 1. I'm going to make the scale 1/8 of an inch and title B4A. Now, right now, because I described this or created this block on layer 0, it's going to place itself on layer 0. I'm going to move it to G Anno.